All right, so today we're going deep, really deep into some seriously sneaky stuff. We're talking manipulation tactics, the kind that leave you feeling like you've been played, but you can't quite figure out how.
Yeah, that's the thing with manipulation tactics. They're often so subtle you don't even see them coming.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive is so important. We're going to lay bare some of the most common manipulation tactics so you can spot them a mile away and, defend yourself. Like it's almost like psychological self-defense.
Totally. Just like learning how to protect yourself physically, understanding these psychological tactics can help you protect yourself emotionally.
So let's jump right into it, shall we? First up, gaslighting. This one's a classic, and it always sends shivers down my spine.
It's definitely one of the more insidious tactics out there.
Right. It's not just disagreeing or having a different perspective. It's way more twisted than that.
Exactly. Gaslighting is all about distorting your perception of reality, making you question your own sanity.
Oh, so creepy. Like, what are some of the telltale signs that someone might be trying to gaslight you? I mean, aside from, feeling like you're going crazy.
Well, they might flat out deny things that you know happened. Or they'll twist your words, try to make you think you said something you didn't. They'll tell you you're misremembering, you're being too sensitive, you're imagining things.
That's messed up. And our source material for this deep dive mentions that gaslighting is even more effective if the manipulator has some kind of authority, like a boss or even a respected family member. Makes sense, right? I mean, we're kind of conditioned to trust those figures.
Absolutely. And that's why it can be so damaging, because you're already predisposed to believe them, even when they're distorting the truth. It makes you doubt yourself even more.
Huh, that's scary stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to something a little, well, maybe not lighter, but different. Love bombing. This one sounds almost pleasant at first, right? Who doesn't love a little extra attention and affection?
Yeah, love bombing can definitely be deceptive because it starts off feeling amazing.
Right, so what exactly is it?
It's basically showering someone with excessive flattery, gifts, affection, and attention. Like it's that whirlwind romance feeling, but turned up to 100.
Oh, so you're saying it's like a romantic comedy on
Pretty
steroids.
much. The manipulator moves the relationship forward at warp speed, making grand gestures and declaring their undying love way too early. It's all designed to create this intense emotional high, make you feel completely swept off your feet.
So what's the catch? It can't all be sunshine and roses.
Exactly. The catch is that it's not sustainable. And more often than not, it's a tactic to create dependency. They're basically getting you hooked on that emotional high so they can then control you.
Wow, that's really manipulative. Our source actually compares it to an addiction cycle, right?
Right. That initial love bombing phase floods your brain with dopamine, all those feel-good chemicals. But then once they have you hooked, they start pulling away, creating that emotional low. And you're left craving that high again, desperate to get back to that feeling of being adored.
So it's all about control. That's really messed up. Okay, let's talk about another classic manipulation tactic. Guilt tripping. I think we've all experienced this one at some point, right?
Oh, for sure. Guilt tripping is incredibly common.
And it's super effective too. Like, how does it actually work?
Basically, it preys on your empathy and your desire to be a good person. They make you feel responsible for their emotions, their happiness, even their problems.
Right. So, like, what are some examples of guilt trip phrases?
Oh, there are tons. They might say things like, if you really love me, you'd do this, or you always let me down, or I'm so disappointed in you. It's all about making you feel bad for not doing what they want.
Ugh, yeah. I can practically hear my mom's voice saying some of those things. But sometimes it's hard to know, right? Like, how can you tell the difference between someone genuinely expressing their concerns and someone deliberately trying to guilt trip you?
That's a great question. I think the key difference is the willingness to compromise and find solutions together. When someone genuinely has concerns, they're usually open to talking things through, finding a middle ground. But with a guilt trip, it's all about getting their way, with no regard for your feelings.
That's a good point. So it's not just about what they're saying, but also their attitude and willingness to consider your perspective.
Right, it's about whether they're truly trying to communicate or just manipulate you into doing what they want.
Okay, last but definitely not least, let's talk about the silent treatment. This one seems almost passive-aggressive, right? But I bet it can be just as damaging as the other tactics.
It definitely can. Silence can be incredibly powerful, and in the hands of a manipulator, it becomes a weapon.
So how does the silent treatment work as a manipulation tactic?
It's all about using silence as a form of punishment and control. They withdraw communication, refuse to engage, leaving you feeling completely isolated and confused. It creates this intense anxiety and uncertainty, leaving you wondering what you did wrong and how to fix it.
That makes sense. Like being ignored can really mess with your head.
Absolutely. And it's not just in your head either. Our source mentions that the silent treatment can actually activate the same part of the brain that processes physical pain. So, in a sense, being ignored can actually hurt.
Wow, that's crazy. It really highlights just how important communication is in any relationship and how silence can be twisted into this powerful tool of manipulation.
Exactly. Healthy communication involves expressing your needs and concerns directly, not trying to punish or control the other person through silence.
Right. So we've covered gaslighting, love bombing, guilt tripping, and the silent treatment. These are all pretty different tactics, but they all share a common goal, right?
Absolutely. At their core, they're all about control. Manipulators use these tactics to undermine your sense of self, to make you doubt yourself, to make you dependent on them. It's about gaining power over you.
So even though they might look different on the surface, they all stem from this desire to control the other person.
Yes, whether it's distorting your reality, showering you with affection, making you feel guilty, or shutting down communication, it's all about getting you to do what they want, to think what they want, to be who they want you to be.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. It makes you realize just how important it is to be aware of these tactics. Knowledge is power.
Right. Totally. By understanding how manipulation works, you can start to recognize the signs and protect yourself. You can set boundaries, assert yourself, and refuse to be controlled.
And you know what? Thinking about all these manipulation tactics, it makes me wonder, do we ever manipulate others? Like even unintentionally, do we ever guilt trip our partners or friends? Do we shut down communication when we're upset? Something to think about, right?
That's a great point. I think it's so important to be aware of our own behavior and to make sure we're treating others with respect, even when things get tough. We might not even realize we're doing it, but we can all fall into these patterns of manipulation sometimes.
It's definitely food for thought. Being aware of these tactics, both in others and ourselves, is a huge step towards building healthier, more honest relationships.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great place to leave it for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time.